Keith Rucker here at VintageMachinery.org. Well guys, today is a milestone day for the Vintage Machinery site. Today is Saturday, September 9th, 2017, and this morning about 6:45 a.m. We broke 100,000 subscribers on the channel here, the YouTube channel. I just happened to, I usually get up around 6 o'clock in the morning, and I went in there and pulled my computer up, and I was actually checking the weather and some other things. I said, well, I'm gonna go see where we're at on the subscriber. I knew we were getting close, and we were at, what was it, 99,999 when I clicked on it. And a couple minutes later, I refreshed the page and pop, we broke the 100,000 mark. So I was actually there to see it happen, which was really exciting. I really didn't think that I would be because I wasn't going to camp out at my computer, but it just turned out I happened to be there when it went over. But I was really pumped when I saw that. Unfortunately, YouTube kind of makes it difficult to tell who the 100,000th subscriber was. I wish I could go in there and figure that out. I actually tried to go in there and figure that out, but the list of subscribers is actually about a day behind the actual subscriber count, so it's really difficult for me to tell who that person was. I wish that I did know. But anyway, very exciting day, very exciting news, and as many of you guys know, when you break 100,000 on YouTube, 100,000 subscribers, YouTube will send you a little silver play button as a reward, and I know several of my counterparts have already gotten theirs, and I'm excited to be in that club here soon, and I don't know how long it'll take for that to arrive, but I'll be keeping an eye on the mail, and I'll share that with you guys when it comes. But we're going to do an odds and ends video today. One other thing I'll mention of significance of Saturday, September 9th, actually is probably going to be Monday, September 11th, is going to be a memorable day around Tifton, Georgia, because we have Hurricane Irma is churning up. It's right now, as I'm sitting here talking, just starting to come into the southern tip of Florida, and it's expected to kind of go up the eastern shore of Florida right up to the middle of the state, and the forecast have that storm coming pretty much right over Tifton. I think we'll probably start seeing the winds and the ill effects sometime on Monday afternoon or evening. Weather forecast right now saying that we could see winds here up to 60 miles an hour, which is a tropical storm force almost to hurricane levels. I think category 1 starts at 73 miles an hour. So we're kind of right there on the verge between hurricane and tropical storm. A little bit nervous. You know, we've had tropical storms come through before, but typically by the time they get here, we don't have the tropical storm winds. It's mostly just a lot of rain. We'll have winds, but not winds of that magnitude. So anyway, we've been doing a lot of hurricane prep stuff the last couple of days. Went out and bought a new generator because we're fully expecting we're going to lose power for some period of time, and cleaning things up, getting up anything loose out in the yards that could blow around. And anyway, we're going to ride the storm out. So keep your fingers crossed, and I'll probably do a storm video or something to share with you guys, show you what's going on, and try to get that posted. I don't know when I'll have power and internet connection, so it may be a few days, so bear with me there. Got some viewer mail. We're going to go ahead and work through this as well while we're doing odds and ends. I've got some stuff that's been stacking up here for a couple of weeks, and actually I had a little bit more of it over there than I realized once I kind of got it all out. So let's work through this and show you some of the cool things that people sent in over the last few weeks. So up first here, in no particular order, got some nice taper shank drill bits that was sent in by Mike Powell, who's up in East Palestine, Ohio. And let's see, that's 35/64s. Trying to read some of these. Yeah, it looks like most of these are 35/64s size. But anyway, some nice little number 2 Morse taper shank drill bits. And we'll definitely get those put over in the collection. I'll probably throw them in my vat of Evapo Rust and just get them cleaned up real good, and then I'll put them in my drill storage area. and we'll have them when we need them. So anyway, thanks a lot, Mike. I appreciate you sending those along. We'll put them to use. So up next, we got some more books that came in, and you guys know how I love these old books, technical books and whatever from back in the day, particularly when it revolves around machinery and steam and what have you. And these come from Razz Dan. Razz is out in San Jose, California. Said he was in a used bookstore and came across these books and just had to pick them up, and decided he'd send them on to me. And a Modern Marine Engineer's Manual. So this is all about basically marine steam engines and running ships and what have you. So a lot of really cool information in here. I've never really had the opportunity to do any work or anything around marine steam. I've been on a few museum ships and what have you. Actually, I was out in San Francisco Bay Area a couple years ago and got to go aboard their little steam-powered tugboat out there, which is still operational. It wasn't an operational day I was there, but I got to kind of roam around down in the engine room, and that was kind of cool. I would love the opportunity to get to play around with some of that stuff at some point in time. Anyway, some really neat reference material here, and we were going to add these to the library. And Razz, I greatly appreciate you thinking of me and sending these along. Thank you, sir. So Razz also included in his package this picture, and I thought I would share this. It's kind of cool. So steam locomotive, and said his grandfather was the engineer of this locomotive. And if you look right here up in the cab, he said that's his grandfather. It's the blurry guy up in the cab. He said the picture was taken sometime probably in the 20s or 30s, and this is actually on the Hejaz Railway. I think I'm pronouncing that right, maybe, and that's in Saudi Arabia. It's a narrow gauge line that ran over there back in the early part of the 1900s. But anyway, kind of a cool little picture of a narrow gauge steam locomotive that his grandfather was an engineer on. I don't think he said that his grandfather passed away when his dad was young, so he never got to meet him, and all he got to hear about was his stories from his father, I guess. But anyway, pretty cool, I thought. So up next here, we got a little package that came in from Frank Perry, who is down in Niceville, Florida. And Frank sent along primarily this really nice set of proportional dividers. And if you guys remember, back probably, it's probably been 7-8 months ago now, I was down, or went up to see Paul Hamler up in North Georgia mountains, and Paul does a lot of scale modeling stuff, and he uses these a lot, and that's what these are basically for, is if you're scaling something up or down. If you have a drawing, for example, and you know that it's 1 inch equals a foot or whatever, you can figure out the proportions, and you can basically slide this little pivot point up or down on the scale, and you can go in there and say, okay, well, if it measures this much on the drawing, it measures this much for real, or you can go the other way. If you're scaling something down, you can go in there and you can measure this, and if you're doing again whatever ratio, just dividers for doing proportions. So it's a handy little tool to have, and I didn't have a set. He had a nice set here in the case, comes with the original directions, and was kind enough to send that along to me. He also had some shim stock here, some brass shim stock of various thicknesses, and sent that along as well. I don't see on there what thickness it is, but I can measure it. That's 3/1000 on that one. I don't see it marked on these. It's probably on there somewhere. But anyway, some nice little stuff. And Frank, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to a chance to get to use these proportional dividers, and I'll put this shim material over with the rest of my shim stock, and that stuff there definitely comes in handy all the time. Thanks a lot. So I got a package back in the mail the other day from Mark Rutowski. Mark, you probably heard myself, as well as maybe some of the other YouTube guys, talk about at MR Tool Repair Service, and Mark basically repairs all kinds of precision instruments, including indicators and so forth like that. I had a few more old dial indicators that I had picked up that were really just junked out. I mean, they were in terrible, terrible shape. Were not even usable. And I sent them up to Mark. I said, hey, just see what you can do with these. If you can't do anything with them, no big deal. These were just some indicators that came in some boxes of some stuff I got at some point in time. Well, Mark went through all these and got them working and back up to speed. So all these are now back where they need to be. So I'm not sure. That's a Boyce. It says on there. I'm not sure. I guess that's who made that one. This one is an Excello. The back in there, the dial is kind of starting to peel up a little bit. I don't think he had anything to replace that one with, but he did put a new crystal on all these. And then we got a little Federal test indicator here as well. But these are all back in tip-top working shape again, thanks to Mark and his excellent service. I also asked Mark, I was looking for some lug backs to go on some Federal indicators that I had that had just plain backs on them, and I wanted to get the lugs on the back where I could put them on like a little Noga or whatever. And he was kind enough to dig through his parts and stuff that he has accumulated over the years, and he sent me a couple of lug backs along with those as well. So anyway, if you got any old tools, machine such as this, indicators, micrometers, dial calipers, any kind of precision measurement equipment that needs to be worked on, Mark is a good person to do that. I'm putting his business card right here so you know how to get in touch with him. I would recommend that you send him an email, mrtool2010@hotmail.com. Send him an email, maybe take a picture or two of what you got, and he will get back with you and let you know if he thinks he can do a repair for you, and go from there. But anyway, I highly recommend Mark. He's done work for me now several times. I had a chance to meet him last year when I was up at the ARNFest event as well. Super nice guy, and thank you very much, Mark, for doing these for me. Next item here comes another little book, and this actually comes from Lynn Kerr, who is up in Ontario, Canada, and I've corresponded with Lynn many times over the years. He's actually offered me a good bit of advice and help on my foundry work. And Lynn is actually a professional sculptor, artist, glass sculptor. He does some casting work as well, mostly more on the art side. But the principles for what I'm doing, making parts and stuff, it's the same process. And Lynn is quite an accomplished artist. I've seen some of his work online, and let's just say I'm impressed. From someone who doesn't have hardly any much of an artistic gene in his body. I'm much more mechanical in nature. Have a lot of respect for those guys that can just see amazing things like Lynn can. But anyway, he sent along this little book. It's just a little foundry book that I think he picked up somewhere along the way. He basically said, yeah, I know most of this stuff is probably review for you, but there's still some good stuff in there, and it was extra to him, so he packed it up and sent it along to me. So Lynn, as always, thank you so much. I greatly appreciate it, and I also greatly appreciate all the advice and expertise that you've provided to me. And he sent along a little note with a bunch of information in there as well that will be useful to me. So anyway, thanks a lot, Lynn. Again, greatly appreciated. So next we got some electrical equipment. And this comes from Brad Benz, who's up in Georgia, just north of me, a couple hours. And he was seeing my big Carlton radial drill, and when I was showing that in a video a week or two ago, he noticed that the motor starters in there were in pretty bad shape and need to be replaced. And he was kind enough to send along a couple of NEMA size 0 motor starters, which would be perfect for this machine. He said that they had gone in, I think what he told me was they had gone in and taken out a conveyor system somewhere, and he had a bunch of these motor starters that they salvaged. And anyway, he sent along 2 of them. It's a reversing motor starter on there. Normally they would, a reversing motor starter is basically 2 motor starters that have some connectors. These are individuals, but I can basically run the connectors between these and make a reversing motor starter out of this. So with a reversing motor starter, you have a switch, and in one direction it activates one coil, and then for reverse it activates the other coil. And basically all you're doing is you're switching 2 of your 3-phase leads on here to reverse the direction of the motor, but you actually have a motor starter on forward and reverse rather than just doing it through a switch. So it's a little bit better, particularly when you get a little bit larger motor, because you got heater protection and stuff on these starters. So anyway, thanks a lot. He also sent along a couple of little fuse blocks. I'm sure I'll probably have a use for those at some point in time. I'll throw those in my electrical gear that I keep, that you just never know if you need it or not. But very much appreciated. This is going to help get the Carlton back up and running. Anyway, we'll get this installed. I'm gonna have to. I've already ordered a bigger enclosure. These starters are a little bit bigger, too big to fit in the enclosure that came on the machine. So once we get that here, I'll probably start tinkering with the electrical over there and see if we can get it all hooked up and running. And as long as we're talking about the Carlton, I'll give you guys a quick update on this. I've been tinkering around with some of the electrical stuff over here. These are, of course, the old motor starters that are in here. And, you know, I've got wires that are literally falling off the coils. I mean, these starters are not in the greatest of shape. I looked the serial number up on this machine, and it was made around 1938, 1939, and that's probably the age of these controllers in here. And they're needing replacement. So, you know, we're going to take all this whole part off. We'll put the new motor starters in here, get everything hooked up. I also want to point out right here, when I did my video on this machine, I showed we had this drum switch right here, and it had been hit, bumped, whatever, and it was busted. And a viewer contacted me, Paul Jacobs, who's up in Naples, New York, and he said, hey, I got a drum switch. I don't know if it'll work on your machine or not, but you're welcome to it if you want to. It came off of a Bridgeport milling machine. So I said, well, send me some pictures and let's see what we can do. And I ran out here and looked at mine, and he sent me a picture, and lo and behold, it's the exact same drum switch. I think it's a little bit newer than the one that was on here, but it's identical. I mean, 100% identical. So he was kind enough to send that along. Paul was. I've already got it on here. I wanted to make sure I gave him credit because I put it on before I actually shot a video. Basically just had to take the little knob that was on it off, and there's a gear down here on the bottom that connects to the control lever, and get all that hooked up. It was not a big deal at all. I don't have it wired up yet, but replace this, and that was a big worry of mine, because I was really worried about finding one just like the one that's on here, because the way this works, it would have been maybe not impossible, it would have been difficult to kind of adapt a different style of drum switch. And again, blows me away, you guys. We just find exactly what we need sometimes. And anyway, Paul, you came to the rescue there. A little bit more about the Carlton here. I came in and I got put 3 new wires going in here. I had to change the wires up in here. This motor that powers the whole machine. It's a 3 horsepower, 3-phase motor, and it was wired for 440 volts, 440 volts. The high voltage option, but you can change that. I'm on 220, so I had to change the leads around up here. In here, the wiring diagram is right here on the side of the motor, so it wasn't a big deal. I changed those around. I wanted to just check the motor out, so I just literally put a plug on these wires and plugged them together to just see if it would work. And this motor here is working perfectly fine. At least it sounds good. I let it run for a while, and even the machine itself sounded all right. So, and drill bit was turning. Everything looks like it's this part's operational. I also to clarify, when I was talking in my original video, I had said that there was 2 motor starters, one for the main head and then one for the up and down motor over here. As it turns out, after I got investigating this more, this is actually a reversing motor starter. So both of these starters go to this motor here that drives the head. And like we were talking about before, you got one for forward and one for reverse. And all this is going to be replaced. Now, right over here is a second motor, and this is the motor that moves the whole arm up and down. It basically goes up into a drive box here and goes into that screw that goes all the way up and down, and that's your elevation rise and follow. There's a lever over on the side, and I showed it in the video as being a clamp. Actually, it's attached to another drum switch right here, which is identical to the one that we replaced. And this is a much smaller motor. It doesn't have motor starters. It's just going through the drum switch. But when you push that lever up, it makes the head rise. You pull the lever down, it's moving this drum switch, and it pulls the head down. Now, this motor, I came out here and wired directly into it just to kind of test it, and it's not working. I don't know what's wrong with it. I'm probably going to have to pull this off, and we got a good motor shop here in town. I got a buddy of mine that works up there. I'll take it up to him, and we'll troubleshoot this motor and see if we can figure out what's wrong with it, see if it can be fixed. If not, I'm probably going to have to find a replacement motor. May have to find a newer motor and create an adapter plate where I can hook it in here. This is pretty much a specialized motor. So going to have to deal with that down the road, but it's not the end of the world. We can definitely get it to work one way or the other. And worst case scenario, my guys at the motor shop, they can totally rewind that motor if necessary, and use that one there. So unless it's got something major wrong with it, I'm pretty sure we can salvage it. And I'm hoping there's nothing major wrong with it. Maybe it's just a loose wire or something in there, and we can get it back up and going. But anyway, quick update on the Carlton radial drill. And again, thank you to Paul Jacobs for sending in the drum switch to get this thing running. So with that, that'll once again be a wrap on this episode of Odds and Ends. As always, thank you to all my many subscribers, my 100,000 subscribers. Thank you to each one of you guys. I still can't believe that we hit that milestone. When I started this channel, I think it was back in 2013, I would have never thought that I'd have hit 10,000 subscribers, much less 100,000. So blows me away. Thank you to all you guys. If you haven't already, please do subscribe to the channel and leave me a comment, leave me some thumbs up. And again, just thank you, everybody. We'll talk to you later.